Hi everyone, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau here, Joyful Vegan, and I'm very excited about this book. It's my new baby. It's my eighth baby. That's not me, but it can be me. It could be you as well. The idea is that we want to live compassionately. So I'm not here to ask you to pre-order. What I am here to talk about is this word, this very important and misunderstood word, and we're going to unpack it today in just a few minutes. So stick around. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I wanted to talk about this word compassion. A lot of people have asked me, and I'm starting to do interviews for the book, and a lot of people are asking me why I centered the book, the topics of zero waste, sustainability, living healthfully, plant-based, cruelty-free, around compassion. I think it's pretty obvious when you think of cruelty-free, why that has to do with compassion. What does zero waste have to do with compassion? What does plant-based eating have to do with compassion? It has everything to do with compassion. And I want to tell you why. One of the things I do in the book, before I even get into the 52 weeks directives, suggestions, is I define compassion, I defend compassion. And one of the things I talk about is number one, that it's incredibly misunderstood. And I think a big part of why it's misunderstood is I think compassion, the concept of compassion, has been characterized as being weak. We kind of have this notion of this kind of social Darwinism that we live in a dog eat dog world. And if you're compassionate and if you're sympathetic and if you're empathetic and you care about someone else and you basically try to survive in a dog eat dog world, you're going to be crushed. And that is so opposite of what Darwin said. This whole idea of social Darwinism that Darwin never said. Darwin never coined the term social Darwinism. Someone took his thoughts and kind of twisted them. One of the things Darwin talks about, which is so significant in terms of evolution and natural selection, is that what he discovered, and he writes this in a couple of his books, he discovered that those species that favored cooperation and compassion were the ones who thrived, were the ones who flourished. This idea that compassion is weak is the opposite of what he found, again, from an evolutionary standpoint. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was that compassion is anything but weak. It is actually the thing that enables us to flourish and thrive and survive. And so what does that mean? I talked about sympathy. I talked about empathy. All of those things are true. And compassion is also about action, is about taking the steps necessary to end suffering. And so if there is suffering in the world, and there is, compassion is actually the solution. And when we talk about this thing called compassion, it would also be a mistake to think that the opposite of compassion is cruelty. The opposite of compassion is not cruelty. The opposite of compassion is separateness. Why? Because compassion is all about recognizing the interconnectedness of all of us as human beings, of all of us as animals, as all of us as earthlings. The idea is that we are like waves in the ocean. You cannot separate one from the other. And if you recognize your interconnectedness, and if the question you ask yourself in everything you do, in everything you eat, in everything you say, in every way you behave, how will this impact someone else? And the answer is it will. Will it impact them negatively or positively is really the question, because everything we do has an impact. Then we will respond accordingly. We will either keep doing the thing that we were planning on doing, or we might pivot and do something else. So the idea is not to feel overwhelmed by 52 weeks and all of the things, living zero waste, living cruelty-free, all of the suggestions I give. Yeah, the suggestions I give will require action. But if you're looking through the lens of interconnectedness, then it's actually effortless. And it's actually exciting and empowering to realize that everything we do has an impact. The question is, do we want the impact we're inevitably going to have to be negative or positive. And so this book is all about the positive impacts we can have and reminding us of the negative impacts we are having in terms of how we eat and how we drive and how we operate in this world as beings who are not separate from the rest of creation, but are integrated into it, are interconnected with it, are part of it. So that is why zero waste and sustainability and how we eat and all the things and how we regard and treat other animals is all framed around the concept of compassion. And my hope is that it'll excite you and empower you to make choices that will have the greatest positive impact. Because as Marcus Aurelius said, what harms the hive harms the bee. It's not just that what we do harms others, it's that when we harm others, we're also harming ourselves. So of course I talk about, how we eat, not only in terms of how it impacts the environment and other animals if we are indeed eating them, but also how it impacts us because we are animals as well. And we want to thrive and we want to eat as optimally as possible because you can't separate out self-compassion from other compassion. What I do impacts me, and what I do impacts you, and what you do impacts me, and what I do impacts you. So I hope that makes sense. So just a little food for thought. If you want more, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, I am so excited about my new Substack platform home called Compassion in Action. I highly encourage you to please go and subscribe. So I will be integrating, speaking of integration, both my YouTube with my Substack. And so videos that show up over there will come over here. Videos that I make over here will go over there. And the idea is to create this family of what I'm calling ambassadors of compassion. I've been calling it that for years, but I am owning that now, that we can all aspire to be ambassadors of compassion and support one another in doing so. And we can do that in all of the ways that I'm trying to invite you over to my home, my online homes, and connect with each other. I know there are millions of ambassadors of compassion out there, those of us who have been doing it for a while, those of us who are just starting out, those of us who are aspiring and struggling. I am here for you. So we're on this journey together, and thank you for joining me. For the animals, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.